Talking with Bill Murphy here about his book, which is called Ride Michigan, right? And how did you ride Michigan?
The vehicle of choice for Ride Michigan, although it's not limited to motorcycles, that is a target niche market, and that's how I visited most of the places that I write about.
So you took your motorcycle to these places, but then you can tell people whether it's good for bicycles or whether it's good for recumbent bikes or motorcycles?
Or great big luxurious recreational vehicles or convertibles or minivans, you name it, any kind of vehicle. The only caveat is you have to enjoy riding on 2-lane blacktop roads. That's where I focus.
So this is like William Least Heat's Moon's Blue Highway.
It is a bit like that, yes.
I always wanted to do that book, by the way. I mean, I remember I grew up with Travels with Charlie, then there was William Least Heat. I mean, there's always been that sort of lure of the back road.
Yes, get folks off the expressway, off the main roads, be in much less of a hurry, enjoy the journey. The basic tenet of the book is back roads, small towns, and it is the journey that counts, not the destination. And to be an active participant in travel. Don't just be a passer through. Actively participate and notice and appreciate what you are seeing and driving through.
I spent 13 years writing for a farm magazine, Michigan Farmer, here in Michigan, and so it meant that I was more likely to go to White Pigeon than to go to Detroit. So that meant that I was going on a lot of those roads. And there would be these charming little things you would see that would just surprise you by the side of the road. I mean, real surprises.
Exactly, and those are the things that I focus on. The very well-known things in Michigan don't need print. Everybody knows about them. They know how to get there. The things I enjoy discovering and writing about are those things that people really don't know they're there, that you can drive right by them and not realize that that building has a famous history dating back to 1860 or such and such a really important or interesting event happened here, or those kinds of things. There are no roadside signs. You'll never read about it on the front page of a travel section or travel magazines, but there are a lot of fascinating pieces of Americana still out there. Grange halls, one-room schoolhouses, the old 1930s gas stations with the twin pillars out front. I love driving down a country road and saying, 130 years ago that building was such and such. And having a curious mind as you travel, and not, as I say, not just passing by or passing through, but actually looking at your surroundings and wondering, why is that hill there? Or why does the landscape look the way it does? What's the story behind that? So whether it's natural or man-made, I try to explain the landscape, the events, the attractions, and it suggests that people really slow down and actively participate in the 31 tours that I have spelled out, so they cannot get lost. They follow my tour, get on it wherever you want. There are no destinations. The tour itself, the roads themselves, are the destinations.
I have two favorites. As a photographer, I've stopped and captured both of them now that I remembered from the past. One is the trout in the center of town in Kalkaska. Beautiful, big, huge trout statue. It's just gorgeous.
Yes.
I love that thing. And then there's the barn with the New Era on the silo. Have you been by that one?
There are a few of those left in Michigan.
Okay.
Very few. I understand
the
that
lady is standing there in her bathing suit.
Yes, I understand that there was a law passed in Michigan and other states that started to regulate barn and silo advertising.
Really?
Ohio has still a lot. If you drive the back roads of Ohio, you'll see a lot of barn and silo advertisements that are still there. And when they have repainted the barn, they repainted them. They didn't paint over the ad, it's still there. Much less of that in Michigan, but there are a few. Every now and then you'll see a faded one if you look real closely.
There's a round barn too up by Everett.
There are several. There's round and octagonal.
Oh.
There are a few. There's one near Owasso, near Ovid.
Really?
Yes. There's one in the Thumb that's quite famous. It's a museum. And there are a very small number of others.
Wow.
When did you take your first ride with this idea in mind?
Probably, if you say ride, I assume you mean motorcycle.
Right, motorcycle.
But this started pre-motorcycle. I've been riding for 45
Right.
years.
Right.
But I have always been fascinated by this sort of thing. I grew up on a farm in a rural area, and as I grew up, I saw a lot of that period of Michigan and America rapidly disappearing.
Yeah.
And I always had a soft spot in my heart for it. I love to see it. I love to think about the stories that barn, that silo, that house, that old one-room schoolhouse that's about to fall down, the stories they could tell, the things that happened there, the families that were raised, the children that spent their life growing up there and playing in that barn that's now a pile of timber.
One of our writers came back and he had done a story on a sheep farm, and he had mentioned in passing as the story was going to press, oh, by the way, those people grew up on Brook Farm, which was one of the collective farms. And boy, there are these absolutely amazing stories from the past. I was wandering around up by Everett many years ago and ran into the Sunshine Farm, which was a collective. It was an old commune up there. They made candles and supported themselves that way. So there were these strange little pockets of people having their own communities. Did you get to?
There are, and one of the things that I enjoy doing, and I really stress in the book, is one of the wonderful treasures we have in Michigan are the small town museums. They preserve that kind of history, that local, unique history that may not have happened anywhere else in the country. They preserve it. They love to talk about it. The volunteers, they might only be open 1 or 2 afternoons a week, but when you go in there, the local volunteers love to talk about their town and that marvelous history. And the only existing artifacts are often in these small town museums. They're a real treasure, and I wish there was some kind of state program that we could use to fund them, to protect them better, and keep them open longer and longer in time and longer in years. But they are something that I stress. I really try to encourage people to travel with, not only slow down, appreciate what you're going through, but travel with an intellectual curiosity and think about the things that you're driving by and why, the whys and whats and hows and the whos and so on. Without too much trouble, you can unearth a lot of fascinating stories. And I wish over the years, Bill, to answer your question, this is something I've always enjoyed doing. I'm one of those guys who actually stopped at historical markers pretty much every time I came to one and read it. I wish I had taken the time to take pictures of old buildings, old barns, old whatever it might be that have since fallen down. I wish I would have cataloged that, but a lot of them, whether it's an old schoolhouse or whatever, went into private ownership, and I always felt, I'm not sure that person wants me in their front yard taking pictures of what's now their house or a barn or whatever.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Bill Murphy about his book, Ride Michigan, and all the tours that he's taken. And one question I did have for you of 45 years of riding the back roads, my concern now is I thought one of the things that the digital revolution would do would be to allow more and more people to work from home so it'd be easier to live in a rural area. Are we seeing rural areas in Michigan dying or thriving compared to the years before you've seen them?
Oh, I think they are definitely thriving. From my perspective, having grown up in a rural area, as I drive back roads, I can't help but notice the number of driveways and the number of new, what I kind of think of as suburban houses.
Oh.
That where, when I was school age, that would have been all farmland. And now they're cut into 5 and 10 acre parcels, and near the back of the parcel oftentimes is a house and the long driveway leading back to it. So in that regard, I believe the rural areas are economically doing quite well. I don't know if that means that farmers have been put in a situation where they've been quote-unquote forced to sell farmland in order to make it, or whether they just found it more profitable to sell farmland to houses along the road and then farm behind them. I don't know, but the look of the countryside has changed dramatically in the last 50 years, and that cannot help but have had a significant economic impact.
Might not be a bad idea to bring our other guest into this conversation, and because she is the owner of a farm in Bath, Michigan, she and her partner, and she owns Wildflower Eco Farms.
That's correct.
And she is one of that new breed of farmers who is at the various farmers markets, and she has a CSA. It's out by Bath, Michigan. And tell us a little bit about what you've seen since you've been out on the farm. What kind of farm do you have?
Well, it is a vegetable fruit farm. We are ecologically grown. So that is no pesticides, no sprays. It's kind of just plant them and wish them luck while we...
Pick the potato bugs instead of spraying.
Oh yes, absolutely. In fact, my chickens loved the potato bugs earlier this morning. It was a great snack for them. There's a lot of hand weeding involved, lots and lots of hand weeding. You have to be very attentive to them. You have to make sure that they are just well thriving, that they're going to produce just delicious, good food for the people that you're going to be feeding them to. And it's a all day long process. It's about 7 days a week from sunrise to sunset.
Did you grow up on a farm?
I somewhat did. When I was born, I lived in Lansing, right about Waverly Road. And then when I was 7 years old, we moved to Dansville, and that was my first taste of farm life. And we
Was rapidly disappearing. When I was like 10, I knew almost everybody within about a 5-mile radius of me, because everybody lived on an 80 or 120 or 160 acre farm. We went to school together. It was just one family farm after another, literally for miles. By the time I graduated from high school, that was about 3/4 gone.
What era was that?
That was late 60s.
Late 60s.
So pretty much during the 60s and then during the 70s, it just fell off a cliff. I mean,
Right.
the number of farms that became consolidated, the small farmer, there are a lot of issues, of course, but I am personally so very thrilled when I hear about new young people who want to get into farming, number one, who want to carry on the tradition in the old way, not driving a 2,000 horsepower tractor, but
With TV.
but doing it by hand and being out there, as you said, weeding by hand and taking care of the bugs by hand. And I spent my childhood doing that also, and it's a good. We had our own large garden, and we pretty much lived off of it. We did a lot of canning. We had a small orchard, and we used no chemicals. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or we just couldn't afford it, perhaps, but we didn't. It was all hand, and you mentioned going out and eating the tomato off the vine. There is nothing more delicious than a fresh tomato with a salt shaker in my pocket. I would spread a little salt on it and eat 2 or 3 tomatoes.
I would eat them green. I would actually, if I didn't know, I'd put the salt on there, eat it green. I didn't care.
Wow.
They were delicious.
See, this is very different. Last Friday, I was out at a 7,000 cow dairy farm.
Oh my.
7,000 cows.
They don't name their cows like they did on Family Farm.
You know what?
I'm pretty sure.
No, they get an ear tag with a number.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of thing that I think we have to be very careful about when you start just assigning people numbers. Then it doesn't seem as much like a living thing. I think that's a very big challenge. I'm a little leery, to tell you the truth, about very large, complex systems. I think they're inherently fragile. And I think when they go down hard. We're seeing right now that bird flu is taking out millions of birds in these large places, and they're not hitting the flock like yours, because your birds are hardy, they're outside. And if you lose a bird, it's not like you're going to lose 1.5 million overnight because they have to be taken out and destroyed.
I heard they had a ban on doing poultry shows actually in Michigan because
Michigan
of
is
the...
just-
Right. No 4-H's or any
That's
of
correct.
any of the county fairs can have chicken.
And then that's kind of hard for me to take, because I remember showing chickens for about 4 years, and it was just a thing. It's just tradition, and now you just can't.
To me, Michigan, I think, in people's minds often conjures up the auto industry in Detroit, and that's what they think of as Michigan. But those 13 years I spent at the Farm Magazine, I mean, I think of all those beautiful rural areas, and you know, you're driving on a back road and there's very little traffic, and you can kind of meander and daydream and look by the side of the road, and you see somebody who's put up one of those old, you know, airmail. Remember they used to have them, they'd have the little mailbox, the little one up high with a little rotor blade on it. I mean, there was a sense of humor out there. They'd have the cutout jigsaw that they'd done on a jigsaw someplace of the little painted things in the yards, and you know, you could stop and get fresh honey, you can get fresh vegetables at a roadside stand. That to me was the real charm of Michigan. And I think the spirit that young people are bringing. Now you say CSAs, which is Community Supported Agriculture.
Right.
Explain a little bit about how that works.
It's really fun. We have 8 families that come by, and they purchase their share. I'm trying to remember exactly how many weeks. I think 16 weeks or such like that. And what we do is for each family we'll set up a parcel, and it'll be full of greens, it will have tomatoes, it'll have potatoes, it'll just have everything that should just keep them good and set for the entire week. And then the next week they just come back and they come more, and they just kind of like we're their little grocery store that they don't have to shop because we already have everything arranged for them. And they have that opportunity to know that we picked it that day. And they can just, we invite them to walk around the farm and look and say, here's where we grow your tomatoes, this is how we care for your tomatoes, here's where we pick your peppers, here you go, and enjoy, please, please. And so it's just nice to see them come up every week, and they just, oh, what do you have new for us? And well, it's usually about every week it's something new. So everyone's just really excited, just super excited.
And you know, it's so nice that the kids in those families realize that the food doesn't come from the local Kroger's. It's grown on
Or
farms.
7-Eleven.
Yeah, it's grown on farms like that.
Right, it exposes their kids. Their kids love coming too because they like to see the kitties that are running around. They love to watch the tomatoes as they start to turn colors, and that excites them. And it just exposes them to know that this is where your food is coming from. These are ingredients to your dinner. This is not just something you bought at McDonald's or something you just bought quick to eat at the grocery store. This is just a one single ingredient that we're going to make your dinner with, and it's just healthy for them. It's
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Jynell Veverka of Wildflower Eco Farm. I always get the two reversed. I don't know, it must be some dyslexia thing going on. And also with Bill Murphy with his book, Ride Michigan. Before I forget, Bill, I wanted to ask you if you could give us sort of a greatest hits of 2 or 3 of the favorite places that you found that you think are like hidden gems that people need to know about, but don't everybody rush there tomorrow.
Well, I would have to classify both in the natural and also the man-made aspects. For instance, in far southwest Michigan in Cass County, there is a tavern that was built in 1837. It is the oldest continually operating business of any kind in Michigan. I have stopped there to have a beer and a burger, and I sit in that building and just think, if this building could talk. The 1837, that is a point where in southern Michigan, land was just starting to be cleared. The people that were cutting the forest in that area, at the end of the day, and building their log cabins, getting it ready to have their family come out of New York or wherever they were coming from. At the end of the day, I can imagine them trudging into this tavern to have, no doubt, a warm beer. I don't know that they had the ability to keep it cold, but things like that. And
What's the name of the tavern?
Old Tavern Inn. Very well named, and by coincidence, just about a block away there. Most of the Native American mounds in Michigan were destroyed during development. There weren't that many to begin with, unlike Indiana and Ohio. A couple of the remaining ones also happen to be in this tiny village of Sumnerville in southwest Michigan, just like 2 blocks from the old tavern. This little village preserved them in a small park there. So in that one stop, you get to see a couple of Native American Indian mounds that are probably 1,000. No one really knows for sure. The Hopewell era, at least 1,000 years old, and go down the street and have a cold beer at the tavern.
Do we know for sure what they use those mounds for? I mean, I inadvertently spent the night sleeping at Cahokia Mounds, which was, which is one of the famous areas with lots of them, because I didn't have a place to stay and it was getting late, so I just pulled over in the park and slept on the ground and woke up in the morning and it was foggy. It was just really a magical experience. They're just amazing. And I don't really know the story. Did they ever figure out what they used them for?
I think burial.
Were they burial?
Well, some burial, some ceremonial. To a certain degree, when I did my Ohio book, they have a lot of these mounds in Ohio, very noteworthy ones. I did a lot of research on it, and there are a number of the just conical mounds. They're huge, and they really, the experts really can't figure out exactly why they would have built a mound that size for any reason. They figure probably ceremonial. In Wisconsin, there's a couple that are flat top that they assume were ceremonial. But I view them as America's pyramids. I mean, they are truly historic. They're marvelous, and the ability to, with nothing but earthen-based tools, deer antlers, whatever they could use to dig and shovel, they built these vast mounds that must have taken generations.
There's a famous serpent one I remember, and a lot of times you actually can't see them or understand what they are unless you see them
from above.
View.
And they're still discovering some.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. Especially in South America and Central America.
Wow. Oh, so what we forget, yes, is it's not just here, is it? I mean, this is something that was...
This was one Indian nation, really.
Wow.
It really was.
Wow, that's just amazing.
Bill, what's your... Do you stay overnight at any of these places? You must, because you're on the road.
I
know
do.
they're day trips, but you have to get there.
Yes, I do. I do a lot of day riding, but I purposely do a number of 5 and 6, 10-day trips, and they are generally fairly non-structured. I travel alone a lot because if there was anybody with me, even my spouse who loves me a lot, I believe, she would be driven insane by my mode of travel, because I have been known to be en route to a particular place and slowly making my way there. And I get halfway there and I change my mind and make a left turn and go in a completely different direction because I saw a sign, or I thought of, I'm this close. I'm going to go over here instead. And when you're alone, you can do that. Obviously, if you're with other folks, you can't travel like that. Yes. So I enjoy, not that I'm antisocial, but I enjoy traveling a lot alone because of the freedom it gives me. But I do try to travel in an unhurried manner so that I just stop and see what's there. And follow the signs, or
So what's in Bath?
well, of course, the most that directed to me, the most infamous thing in Bath, of course, is the school bombing incident, and the sign that is still there. I just bicycled out to Bath just last week and parked the bicycle in front of the sign and took a picture. But that's the most famous. What I think of when I think of Bath, what I enjoy the most is the public land, the Rose Lake Wildlife Research Area out there, which is a beautiful Clark Road. Going through that piece of public land is beautiful. I love it. I do a lot of hiking and walking out there, and it's a real treasure located very nearby.
Well, we do the weekends. On Saturday, we are at the Meridian's Farmers Markets. On Sunday, we just started the East Lansing Farmers Market that opened yesterday.
Yeah, first time.
And that was quite,
That seems late.
That was quite an event. Actually, it's pretty early. I think they started in July in the last couple of years, so June.
Oh, really?
June is a little earlier. Yep.
Oh.
And it was a great turnout, just fantastic, absolutely nice. They had a giveaway for the first 200 customers. They all got a free reusable bag. And then everyone who got their bag was just running around and was trying to buy as much food that they can fill their bag with. So it was just amazing.
So how do you compete at a market people bring a lot of the same things, so is there some marketing savvy that goes into this?
I noticed some farms kind of have their little trademark item, whatever they specialize in.
Yeah.
So, and one of ours was heirloom tomatoes. I believe we have about 20 varieties growing. And I've been with this farm for 4 years now. And the more I grew with Phil, the more I've learned about all the varieties of peppers and tomatoes. And I never knew that so many colors and shapes could come in a one type of vegetable.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
When I was a kid, my mom would just grow those little orange tomatoes or maybe the little pear shape, and I figured that was it. And then when I said, "Oh my gosh, there is a green striped tomato. What is that?
The green zebra.
Is that poisonous? Can I eat that?" And I never knew. But then he said, "Oh no, that's chocolate stripe." And I bit into this tomato, and it had this dark brown flesh, and it just had this deep smoky flavor to it that just blew me out of my mind. I said, "Wow, this you don't get these at Kroger.
No.
You don't get these at Meijer."
I'm growing black cherries this year, the black cherry
yes.
tomatoes, and then sun golds and new girls, and so it's very hard to get them all in.
Absolutely.
I mean, really, there's so many different varieties.
And then you have to meet the people's demands. Our number one seller is a purple Cherokee, which is a dark burgundy, large tomato that can get up to even a pound. Some of these get huge, maybe even 2 pounds, or they're just like dinner plate sized. And
It's a big tomato.
Yes, it is.
Yes, they are. And
They're stunning.
And we'll have visitors that come to the market, look at our tomatoes, and say, "Oh, look, they have apples. They have peaches." And you have to explain these are heirloom tomatoes, and they kind of have a question mark over their head. And said, "I've never seen a brown tomato. I've never seen one with stripes like that. What do they taste like?" And sometimes
Fingerling potatoes.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
those are the little tiny ones, and they're purple, and they're yellow, and there's the banana ones, and the Finnish ones,
Oh,
and they're just
absolutely.
all these. And I think this is a whole new era for people like me who are primarily vegetarian, because, I mean, there's just so much variety now. I mean, for years, if you went to a restaurant, you said you were a vegetarian, they gave you a plate of squash. That's all you got. Seriously. I mean, I was going to Kellogg Center, and I knew exactly I was going to get a plate of squash every night. But now, I mean, you can really eat very different every night.
it's an art, actually, too,
Yeah.
as well, because of all the colors. So you can actually have this masterpiece on your plate. I remember for the 4th of July, I made mashed potatoes, and I had the pink thumb, which had this nice bright red thing. I had our magic mollies, which were these deep, inky purple guys that'll stain your clothes and you can't get them out.
Wow.
And then we'll have these purple Vikings, which are beautiful on the outside. They're pinkish purple, kind of a camouflage color, but they have this beautiful white flesh that just come out nice and fluffy when you bake them. And then when you cook those together, the colors are just amazing. You're just eating a painting almost, like nature's painting.
I was posting on Facebook the other day. I take a lot of Instagrams of my food. I'm one of those. Can't help it, because I go out to the hoop house and it's like, Iron Chef every night. Here's your ingredients. What are you going to make, And I try to figure out a dish from that. But I eat by color now. I really do. I like to make sure that I'm getting a variety of different colors, because just instinctively I think that that's healthier. You're getting all these phytochemicals
Absolutely.
that people really never thought about a decade or two ago. I mean, and that's just not something you're going to get in burgers and fries.
Right. The more colors, the better.
But you're
And
doing-
it's appealing to children too, because sometimes they'll be seeing all these carrots that are bleh, and then they'll see all these peas and all these broccoli blah, but now they have all these different colors for carrots. They have this
Rainbow carrots.
beautiful rainbow. They come in whites, they come in deep red, they come in purple, they come in yellow. They just come in this beautiful shade, and children love colors.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "No, I like this. Maybe I'll be tempted to eat this." They have cauliflower that comes in purples. They have
Yes, and they're spiky and
they have
So George Bush
spikies.
would have been a different person if broccoli was red.
well, it's certainly been good news for the vegetarians, and we're the sort of people who believe.
And chefs in,
Well,
in
true,
very
chefs are
high-end
wild.
restaurants. This is what they're doing now.
In addition, what we are seeing is some of them starting to forage as well, so that you can put together a plate of morel mushrooms that you've been lucky enough to
yes.
find someplace and put it. I mean, we're beginning to realize that really the tastiest food is the foods that's the freshest and the closest to you. I still want to think, I was thinking about this the other day, it was Marco Polo who apparently first brought us oranges and tea So we still want to trade with some people. I like the idea of fair trade and helping the coffee growers in other countries make a living by bringing, because I love coffee in the morning. But being able to mix that with things that you grow yourself. The other challenge, though, and I know we've been talking about this, is sometimes people don't fully appreciate the work that it goes into. There's a reason you don't see 20 varieties available
correct.
at Kroger. It's a lot of work. It's very hard to do. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of effort, and you never know when you're going to get wiped out by something.
Correct. It's a commitment.
It is.
It's like having a child.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's emotional when people want to come in and give you a hard time, like, well, why does this cost more than it does at Kroger?
Correct. And I do get that a lot, actually, and it gets quite frustrated when it's sometimes it's hard to explain to a person that first you had a plan where this vegetable is going to go,
Yeah.
and then you have to tend to that set vegetable. You have to cultivate around it. You have to weed around it. You have to make sure that the pests and the disease are not going to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then for that day that you pick it, you get out early in the morning, you go out when the grass is still wet, and it's hot, it's humid, your hair is sticking to your back and your neck, but you just know that this vegetable that you're going to feed everyone is just, it's healthy, it's safe for them, they get to meet the person that is feeding them.
Yes. And
And
it's supporting a local family.
absolutely.
It's not supporting a mega farm out in California. One of the things that's disturbed me about the USDA rules related to organics, for example, is that the latest thing they're going to do now is ban all dogs on the farm. Well, to me, if you're going to be riding by on that motorcycle and you want to look at rural life, you want to see that dog out there with you in the
yes.
morning, right? And your kitties in the yard, and you don't want to see all these animals banned from the farm. But that's what they want to do now because they're saying, well, they could be vectors for disease. So obviously we can't have any dogs out there. Well, to me, that's not what farming is.
How did we ever survive all those generations with dogs and pet goats and pet chickens?
In the house.
And, yes.
They're doing clear
Yeah,
cutting
that's a
around
big
these
one.
farms out there now, and they're getting rid of all the wetlands and wildlands because they don't want to run the risk that when those mechanical harvesters come in for the spinach, you're going to find a frog in the bag of spinach, right?
Right.
Well, you're not going to find a frog in the bag of your spinach because you picked it.
You might.
Just a little extra protein.
It'd be fun to find.
That actually has happened one time. And then thankfully the customer was not upset. She took it home with her and released it.
Oh, so it's still going?
Oh, yeah.
Catch and release. That's cool.
I think the ones they find when the mechanical harvesters
Oh, yeah.
aren't lucky enough to be, we found basically your frog parts, I think.
Yeah, it was a whole but very happy frog.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Jynell Veverka of Wildflower Eco Farm and also with Bill Murphy of Ride, Michigan. And kind of, I don't know, I think the summer makes us all appreciate the rural areas so much because it's just so wonderful watching everything come back to life.
I think Bill's is going to develop an idea here to go around to family farms. Be a fun
Oh,
story.
that
wouldn't
would
it?
be great.
That would be a fun
Let's get to
story.
eat.
And with my background, the old saying, you can take the boy off the farm, but you never take the farm out of the boy. And that's certainly true with me. I still very much love the rural lifestyle and could move back onto a farm and do what you're doing, Jynell, and be very happy doing it.
Now, what do you find in the UP? How is the UP? I mean, that's really a separate state.
And mine, state. And
State of mind, yes. I probably shouldn't say this, but ever since my first trip to the UP when I was a kid, I thought they ought to make the UP a park.
Really?
To me, it is so unique. It is so wonderful. The Lake Superior Basin in particular is one of the globe's treasures, absolutely without question. And I love the UP. I've never lived there. I've lived in a lot of places in Lower Michigan. Working for the state, you move around a lot. But I never lived in the UP. But it was my destination of choice for decades for vacation and day trips and whatever. It is a very unique place. We being the state of Michigan, the citizens and the lawmakers really do need to protect it for the long term, for many generations out, while at the same time, of course, providing an economic base for the residents. But it should not ever be viewed in the same manner as, for instance, Southeast Michigan, where someone said, well, we really ought to be building large industrial facilities up there to hire 5,000 people at a time, or that sort of thing. I believe whatever industry and commerce up there needs to be compatible with the Upper Peninsula, with the land, with the mindset, and be, for lack of a better word, a light footprint when it comes to development and especially industrial development.
I was up in Copper Harbor the first time when I came over and saw that in the morning driving in, and it literally took my breath away. It was so beautiful. Yep. And I'm worried that with the kind of mining that we do nowadays, I mean, in the past, the mines were relatively unobtrusive. It wasn't fun being a miner. No job as a miner has ever been fun. But it's a different kind of mining now, and I kind of worry about some of those projects that are going in up there.
Particularly the sulfide mine there northwest of Marquette. That has the potential to be very, very damaging if it's not properly operated. Even if it is, it's going to leave a scar that will change that area forever, for many generations, certainly.
We need to realize what we should be protecting.
We do, and we need to realize that it's all not just for today, for today's economy and for today's tax base and for today's job market and so on, that there will be people living in the Upper Peninsula that will be needing it for the natural resources, for the recreational value, as well as the economic base 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now. So we need to protect it today so that it is there for a lot of generations, for a lot of centuries.
Lee Sprague just started a petition online through moveon.org that people might be interested in, which is asking that they shut down Enbridge's pipe number 5, which goes under the Mackinac Straits, which is 60-some years old. It was built to last for 30. Every day that it goes beyond that mark is a potential disaster in the making. And it is time to do the smart thing and shut
It's pretty darn scary.
Right.
It is really scary. And a year or two ago, we didn't even know that it was there.
I never knew it was there.
I never even heard of it till now.
I see. I mean, there's this aging infrastructure that was built so long ago. There was an era in which we had a lot of manual labor jobs, both in the factories and also for public works. And we don't have those kinds of jobs anymore, and we're not rebuilding that infrastructure, and it's so dangerous if these things cut loose.
It's probably in the most sensitive waterway in America. I mean, take out 2 lakes, all the people that make a living on the lake, all the people that live on the lake. It's darn scary.
It is darn scary.
A significant amount of the world's fresh water is right there. It's not just Michigan. It's obviously Canada as well that's affected, but it's also an international treasure. That water represents a treasure unlike almost anywhere else in the country. We happen to be caretakers of the most important freshwater system on the planet. Yeah. And Michigan is primarily responsible to be the caretaker for that on behalf of the planet. And we absolutely need to take a very close look at those pipelines.
Just to give you an idea of what I think is potentially coming, I have a graduate assistant who lives in San Juan, Puerto Rico. She's up here getting her PhD, and her husband is getting his PhD here at Michigan State as well. When they first went home back to San Juan for the summer, it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she was stunned when she got there to find out that you have water one day and then it's shut off the next. The city shuts off the water for 24 hours. You get 24 hours of water, and then you get 24 hours without because of the drought. We're not hearing about the drought in San Juan, but it's definitely a part of some of the political unrest that's occurring in that country. Well, she just emailed me last night. They're now this week moving to 48 hours with no water, 24 hours with water. Do you know what that would do to us? We're not even seeing this on the news. I'm getting the news from an email from my graduate assistant because it's not on the news here. If the drought is that bad in San Juan and in Puerto Rico, and it's that bad in California, I mean, we really are here with where we have both the water and we are the second most diverse agricultural state behind California. Mm-hmm. Jynell is going to be the person that I'm going to count on growing my food for me.
That's what I've always said. I'm going to look for the people with the hoop houses. They're going to become my best friends.
Yes, seriously, because we've got the water and we've got and we have the know-how. And you've been doing this for 4 years now, you said?
I've been doing this for 4 years now.
And so, I mean, you're starting to perfect your skills.
Absolutely.
See, the beauty of a CSA arrangement is that the people who buy a share, in essence, take the risk with you.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, if you say, well, we're going to plant parsnips, but the parsnips don't come in this year because of weather or pests or whatever,
Correct.
you don't get parsnips, and you just take the risk with us. But I think we have to invent these new kinds of small-scale opportunities for people to be more food self-sufficient.
Yeah, I just wish they would be a little more aware that you just can't expect to go to a grocery store and survive entirely on that. I remember it was, I think it was 2 years ago when we had that large snowstorm. And we were driving around, we went to Monticello's, and we didn't even know what was going on. We didn't even know there was a snowstorm coming. We just went to Monticello's. They're great local family store. And I said, oh, okay, we have all the items we need. We just need one more. We're going to go to Meijer that's across the street. And we drove by, and the parking lot was just horrendous.
Yes.
And we stopped, and we just went, what's going on? Maybe it's only a Monday or whichever day it was, and maybe it was a game or something. So I just said, you know what, we don't need this item. Let's just go home. And then that's when I learned that it was just the snowstorm was coming, and there were these photos online of all these people just packed and lined all the way to the back of the store, and they had canned foods, they had bottled water, there was a woman was guarding two carts full of soda pop, and it was just kind of what are you doing? What are you going to do when the apocalypse hits?
Yeah. No, seriously, I mean, we have perfected supply chain management with just-in-time delivery, which means there is no inventory in the back
Well, you
of the
can
store.
see how fast the shelves get cleared out.
They do.
And it's gone.
There's no food.
Yes, tornadoes coming or hurricanes coming and zip, everything's
Everyone's
gone
at
from the
at
store.
Walmart.
We don't have that traumatic weather here. I mean, even a snowstorm. Give me a break.
Well, we had our ice storm, but
Oh,
Yeah, well, that was as close as anyone's come.
Oh, right.
It is.
and we had a similar situation the summer when we had the giant power outage, and all of a sudden everybody found out how thin to the boards they were. I mean, it's a challenge. I like knowing that if push came to shove, I could always munch my way through that hoop house in the backyard.
Absolutely.
I mean, my challenge is I'm still not very good at growing greens in the winter. I don't know. This last winter was really tough. Did you have difficulty?
I don't think we even tried.
Oh, I
this
see.
year.
Well, the smart move. Michigan is not the greatest place for winter growing yet.
Yeah,
but, I mean,
correct.
we still have our.
Well,
Yeah,
if they
we're
start-
still trying to perfect that system so that we can actually be getting that and
Yeah.
And if they start patching up solar with hoop houses, which will
Absolutely.
come.
Yeah, yeah, they will. I mean, that's one of the things, of doing what's called a double hull, where you have two layers of plastic with air in between
Yeah.
really helps. But I don't have power out there, but a nice little solar power source would be really great to keep that fan going, that kind of thing. So
Right.
those things are coming. You know, I noticed though the other day I was walking out there to the hoop house and I looked up in the sky and there was a hawk flying above. And I just, you know, there was something, and I'm not a terribly spiritual person, but I thought, I just tried to imagine what it would be like being that hawk up there and looking down on this land and, you know, feeling the wind go through as you're flying. I mean, it just seems to me that we have this hugely abundant nature. When you go out there, I mean, one of the reasons I'm assuming you like a motorcycle and not a big tin can around you is because you like to feel you're close to nature?
Oh, I love being immersed in the environment, in nature. I love the feel of driving down almost any road, just a 20-foot difference, a little hill, a little creek valley, you can feel the temperature differences.
Yeah.
You know, this time of year you drive by, just the other evening, in fact I did, a country road where they had just mowed a field of hay, and the smell of that hay just, it was wonderful. And yes, you really are immersed in nature, in the environment. And I think as a civilization or as a society, we treasured that more. We did drive around with the windows down.
Right.
We put our arms outside to get the sun
We always
and
had
to
the one
get
arm
the
right.
fresh air. And you wanted the fresh air. Now we have so encapsulated ourselves in our glass and steel cocoons so as to keep all that nasty old nature away. And it is
Before we forget, Bill, you have an event coming up tomorrow.
Oh,
Tell us about it.
I do have an event tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the Eastwood Mall in Lansing, Schuler Bookstore. I will be giving a talk about Ride Michigan. It's I will tell you here, the talk is mostly about Michigan, not motorcycles or motorcycling or people. A lot of folks, when they see my book, they think it must be about me and my travel adventures. And the book is not about me at all, other than the fact that I've been to all these places. The book is about small town and backroads, Michigan. And it is tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock at Eastwood Schuler's.
And I should say that not only does Jynell do wonderful, has all of her farm produce, but she does these marvelous little crocheted unicorns and little animals. And she has an Etsy shop she's closing, and you're going to find her on Facebook. So she is Jynell Veverka, Veverka, and you can find her there online. And she's a great artist. She does fantasy artwork, and she's a writer. I mean, there's, it's one of those things where that all seems to go together with sort of this back to the land, back to nature movement. So it's so wonderful. I've really enjoyed talking with both of you tonight. We've been talking with Jynell Veverka from Wildflower Eco Farms, and you can catch her at the Allen Street Market and the Meridian Market and the East Lansing Market. And also with Bill Murphy, whose book Ride Michigan. He's going to be, what is Thursday?
Tomorrow. Tuesday.
Tomorrow. Tuesday.
Tuesday at 7 o'clock at Schuler's.
At Schuler's at Eastwood.
Yes.
At Eastwood. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan, the Lansing Online News Radio Show with Bonnie Bucqueroux and Bill Castanier. We're here every Monday night at 7 o'clock. Make sure to tune in with us again next week, and we hope to see you then. Thank you very much for listening.